Hello, good afternoon, viewers. My name is Nanaya Yabua. Welcome to the Nanaya Yabua show. We're coming to you mid-afternoon, and I'm really excited today because I am with Mario Rigby. Mario Rigby is my guest today on the Nanaya Yabua show. I will not introduce him. He is going to introduce himself. So, the basic question, which many people find difficult, but I know you are excellent at answering it, is who is Mario Rigby?
Very good question. And you know, I feel like changes slightly, but um, I'm an eco explorer on adventures and expeditions around the world that focus on and social problems happening around the world. My claim to fame: the entire length of Africa by foot, which took me 2.5 years from Cape Town to Cairo. Journey really was the all my incredible adventures that I've done and understanding about humanity forward within my career as well. It all stemmed from across Africa.
Wow. So, you describe yourself as an eco explorer. For those of
Mm-hmm.
us who don't know about exploration, because majority of the people who watch my program don't know about eco exploration. So for the lay person just like myself, how would you break it down for me?
Well, so eco explorer is someone that does or adventures that really focus. So eco, the word for doing things with a very small footprint. When I do adventures, I really focus on adventures that highlight sustainability. For instance, companies and organizations that prioritize sustainable products, eco products. You know, instead of you use glass, etc. Like those different kinds of things. There's also a new term. So for anyone, really, this is possibly know what it is, because if you look up Eco Explorer on YouTube, you might people.
Okay. Um, Now, for with me, when I met you and you said this is what you did, it was like, wow, you did that. But the most important thing for me is that I was with the view, not myself alone, but in society, many of us are of the view that Black people don't explore. So that is what I want you to deliberate on, whether it is fact or it's fiction.
Mhm. So it is fiction and fact that we have always explored. We've been explorers for thousands of years. Humanity comes from Africa. We, as Homo sapiens, have left Africa and have journeyed around the world for thousands. And those were the first explorers, really, were people coming out of Africa. And then there were also, the Malian Empire, not too long, the greatest explorers of all time. They had mass richness to the likes that the world has never seen before. And they have crossed it. Took months to get over. And there are even accounts of Christopher spotting
Mhm.
African people in the Caribbean, in Americas, and so the notion of explorers has only been changed at that time is when the victor, in a sense, gets to tell the story. When we say fact or fiction, fact, we do. I'm going to explore
Yeah.
fiction in the sense that if do Black people explore, the most likely answer is going to be, and there's a lot of um, misconceived um, as to why Black people don't do adventures, don't do crazy explorations, just
Mhm.
that that answer curiosity. Curiosity is what really feels. But in order to be curious, you need to be in a place where you do those kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Great. Wow. And I understand that there have been, Black explorers actually to Mount Everest before, or eh, eh, am I right?
Yeah, yeah. There've been many explorers that have climbed Mount Everest. Is actually, relatively speaking, one of the easier mountains to climb. Thousands of people have climbed it already,
Mhm.
and so it's not because there are paths now that over a long period of time created new paths to go up the mountain. When you look at the pictures today of people that are walking up Mount Everest, you'll see these massive lineups of people in the hundreds, really, and they're just all lining up to get to the peak because every status of I climb Mount Everest because it used to be the pinnacle of, but once something has been explored and conquered, then it becomes easier and easier to do it after before. But if you're looking at the most recent explorers that are people of color that are Black, Matthew Hansen, the greatest explorers of all time to me, because he is actually the first man North Pole. I don't know. I forgot exactly what time, what date, but around this time there was a race to make it to the North Pole, and there were people fighting to see who would be the first one. And miraculously, Hansen, the way he did it was he actually ended up living with the indigenous, and he learned their language. He fell in love with one of them, and the indigenous. Well, we got to carry our love all the way through. And the indigenous people, a specific name, they call them in indigenous tongue. They call them the nice man. That's because his approach to exploration was very different than the other explorers, because they would come and the mentality, particularly from the West, conquer, right? But for him, it was to explore and be curious. He learned the language. He became one with the people, and that is what propelled him to become such a tracker on the ice and the snow, to be
Yeah.
able to go to the North Pole, to do things like that. It was a white man that's gone to the North Pole first. It was not. It was a Black man, and stories like that, you know.
Beautiful. So, I really didn't want to go like, write questions and ask you all those questions, but also
Uh,
I don't want to miss the salient points, because really the Nana Yayabua show, as much as it's about storytelling, it's also about motivation and inspiration. And your
mhm.
experience is so deep and vast. I don't want to miss any part. So we will do our best with your help to inspire those that want to do something similar like this, or to do things in their life, and motivate them to go. So that brings me to the question, the beginning
Mm,
of this journey. For
yeah.
every journey, there is a beginning.
There's
What
always,
is your beginning story?
I believe that at the beginning time, actually, before I was in the womb of my mother, my mother has been such a very brave, courageous woman. And ever since she was a child, and, people would make fun of her. She was bullied a lot. And she was one of the few who actually left the island. And that was a taboo thing to do, is to marry, outside of Turks and Caicos Island at that time.
Mm.
And, with two kids, to a random country, she took us to Germany for educationally a better opportunity for us to and the way that she would make these, she would be like, okay, we're gonna go to Canada now. We're gonna live, because we want to live a new kind of life. But the way she introduced it was always what make it like an adventurous challenge,
Adventure,
which
yes.
was always fun with my brother. And eventually, that's something that eventually, I started to become courageous. But you don't become courageous from nothing. You've practiced it. It's a
Mhm.
muscle in the mind. I could just as easily be scared of everything people are afraid of as well. But it's literally just in the mind.
Yeah.
And over time, muscle to be stronger and stronger, to be able to look at things and reason and with logic. But I also still have that Caribbean feel vibe with it. It's that combination. It's that balance, not weighing everything, but all.
Sometimes
And
you just have to go for it.
you just have to go. Um, and then there are a few times where you just have to plan it. And the big expeditions, I plan it. So before I went to Africa, it took me 9 months to. It takes people years to prepare something like this. And before Africa, I never camping. I never did any of these things. I didn't go outdoors. I was not an outdoorsy person. This is me.
No?
Nah, none of that. I never went camping before in my life. Never literally owned a tent. I never owned a backpack. None of these things. Oh, so for me, what inspired me to do this trip was back when I was a kid. Me and my brother, we would watch a show called The Black Panther. A lot of people think The Black Panther just started as a movie, but
No.
it wasn't actually. It was a Marvel comic, a comic book, which then had a TET, Black Entertainment Television. And me and my brother watched this, and we saw a guy who to us was a hero, not only
Yeah.
because he was a person of color, but because of how he carried himself. He carried himself very differently than other superheroes. It wasn't a macho bravado thing. He approached people with very kind of matriarchal approach to help community, and he was surrounded by women that loved him, and he loved them back. And that's something that we resonated with, that we connected with, because of how strong my mom is, and kind of um, home for us as well. So that really resonated. When I was between 28 and 29 years old, the age of 29, and I landed at the age of 30. Like, so on my birthday, right on my birthday in Cape Town.
You just had to do that.
Of course. And my mom actually was the one who
Reborn.
Sorry?
You were reborn.
I was 100% I was reborn, and I knew all of those things. I certain aspects of what is to come and how I'm going to the stuff. And the first person who I called to tell about Africa was my mom, actually. So I called my mom and I said, "Hey, I think it's life or death for me. It's like either I can continue living in the city, just living a life of unfulfillment, and but pretending that I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to pretend to be happy. I didn't want to pretend to do those things. I wanted to really in an environment that enriched my curiosity, that enriched my goals, everything like that." And so I started the world. What are some things that I could do to find fulfillment? And I remember that show. I remember that episode, and I started watching it, and I was like, it makes clear sense, because in episode T'Challa, the king of Wakanda, before he becomes the king of Wakanda, after his father, and in the show, he decided to go on a walkabout, which is very common, traditional African tribes and all indigenous tribes. And so you go through this coming of age, kind of like almost pilgrimage walk, and you find yourself really being challenged to the limit. And I think when you're being challenged to the limit, you are what you're capable of doing. And if you're not capable of doing it, then you become a man. And that's why they do these kinds of journeys, right? I thought to myself, like, in modern society, we don't have those things. We don't how to be powerful with responsibility, men to be calm with our hearts, with our minds, and to look at the world as a competitive stage. So we literally teach a lot of men the opposite, that what a lot of these indigenous cultures have taught men. And okay, I'm going to do this walk across Africa. I'm going to make sure that this is something that I also, there are many reasons why I did. One reason, I was inspired by the Black in the Day when I was a kid. My other inspiration was I wanted to travel to place gone to. I wanted to challenge myself to the uppermost limit, physically, logically, all those different things. And I wanted to see if I could go through it. That was probably my biggest challenge. I wanted to see if I can go from point A to point B. And it's, you're like Cape Town to Cairo. It's a very simple, easy concept but to go through it is probably one of the most complicated things in the world.
Well, on the map, it looks like a straight line from top to bottom, bottom to top. But I do, and you had a lot of challenges. But before we got into the challenges, your experience is from what I'm getting from you, and I think we've touched on this in a conversation prior, is like a spiritual awakening to who you. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I would say spirituality, how you see yourself connected to everything around you. So I wanted to be more spiritual. I wanted to feel the universe, to earth, to other people, to animals, the immaterial, but also the material world. And that through near-death experiences. There are which I didn't think that I was gonna keep going. The situation was so dire that, you know, at that point to just stop and peacefully die than to imagine like you've walked for 2 weeks straight, you're suffering every single day, to 70 kilometers a day, you're chafing, between your thighs is bleeding because constantly the bottom of your feet look like cottage cheese because like real has eaten up all the skin, and you're just in the most agony, and you're alone, and that's the worst is when you're
Alone.
really lonely. And alone and lonely are very, very different things. You can be surrounded by nature, by the environment, by it's a perception of what loneliness is. But then you can get really lonely. You allow your mind to wander and grow like a snowball, and then you start to like talk to yourself out loud, and you start to like visualize. You're like really starting to hallucinate. The kind of experiences that I went through that really helped understand who I was, because I pushed myself to the point of, close to dying. And
Wow.
when I'm in those stages, I don't even know that I am dying. It's just to my, I always say this to my friends. I say, I will never know when I die because I keep struggling, keep trying to get, and I'm always optimistic that I see the light at the end. My last efforts are going to be that to save my life. And when you have your last breath, you don't know that you're dead. You just have your last breath. After that, to remember that last breath. And so I always found me dead. It's probably I'll be in a position where it looks like something.
Whew. Wow. Listen, I don't know how you did it, but what I do know and understand is that it's a testament of will, faith, faith, and the human, that human willingness to how do we call it, push ahead no matter what. And I think I've told you this before. You are an inspiration to me personally. That what is I got off my butt off the couch
That's
to
important.
begin my, yes, to actually utilize the trails around my, my house, where I live, and I go for about an hour and a half. Half of the time, I have no idea that it's an hour and a half, except that I don't do certain things before. I don't stretch before. Then my legs and my thighs start cramping.
Oh my goodness. I mean,
And
it's I I also grew up as an athlete. Huge help being
I
an
did it.
athlete. Yeah, that's why maybe even more. I would say, not more of an accomplishment. If you haven't even
It
experienced what
helped.
those things feel, throughout
Yeah.
my entire life, I've been exposed to pain and overcoming harsh obstacles like injuries and whatnot. So yeah.
I think what works for me is that I had my babies natural. So, and that's the
Yeah,
biggest.
that's definitely a big help. But I think it's more than that though. I think you, in your mind, there are people who are survivors, and there are people who are not survivors.
Mhm.
And mother or father, there are many people who die every day because they have stopped
Yeah.
continue going, regardless of whether they have
So the
children or
mindset.
not. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
And that mindset, you know, comes from people in different forms and any kind of environmental circumstances. You could be in the middle of a war, and you could
Mm-hmm.
have the fortitude of someone who was born in a mansion, but that person might also have that drive.
Mm-hmm.
And that personality is, I think, what distinguishes people between who survive and those who will not. So that's an important, because when people try to do these things, like, it's not one thing like this, it's many different things.
It's many things. It's which you're very right. And just to share a little bit about of my experience is that I have realized that when everybody is going left, I want to go right. What are they seeing there that I haven't seen? I want to see that. So
Yeah.
yes, and before we met at the gallery, I had just come back from hiking trip in Tennessee, the Smoky Mountains, and yes, it was a challenge because that was the first time I had done. Yes, oh, I was broken, but I find that it was an experience in a way that along the hiking trails, it's my sister and myself and our children that were the only Black people
Yeah.
on the trails.
Yeah.
And especially in the United States, you get the looks, a whole lot of looks. What the heck are these people doing here? It's like, me too, I came. What you doing, I'm also doing. So whilst everybody is going left, me, I want to go right. I want to go right.
I love
But
that.
yes, that is the quality of experience. Um, in your conversation, you talk about fulfillment. How is happiness important in that fulfillment of purpose? And then we'll talk about the purpose and your intentions for doing what you did. Yeah.
I think happiness is different for each person. They strive their entire life to seek happiness all the time, less. That doesn't
Is there a formula
mean that.
for that?
I was
Or
gonna
a
say,
pill one
like,
can
I
take?
think it's 10%. No, I think that me, I, I always thought in my head that if I keep seeking happiness, then I quickly go into depression, as many people
Mhm.
do. What I look for, peace in my mind, and that means to accept things and have gratitude of the things that I have. And I think that is the first to being happy, because the happiness is just a settle. It's like like anger, right? It just kind of comes out. No one ever says angry. We strive to be the opposite. But if you only go after this one thing, you're going to meet the opposite, because you're going to be frustrated that one that you're not happy right now. You're seeking after it. My question to people is this: if you are doing something in which you would sacrifice, not all the time, but sometimes, to do something very difficult, something very hard, then I think that is the beauty. And that could be anything like raising a child successfully. That doing work that humanity will reap the benefits from, saving the planet or inventing some new technology, doing something scientific. That is you realize that those people, they're not seeking happiness, people are usually happy. It's usually they are seeking a deepening also their passion, because their passions make them happy. Just doing the things, but they're not satisfied. They're seeking the thing that wakes them up early in the morning and whatever it is that they're doing. And for me, being an explorer, crossing Africa, I felt like that was my duty. That was what I love to do, is my passion. I woke up every morning early, 5 a.m. There were times I woke up late, but and then you continue walking. But it was consistent. I kept it going all the way till the end. And I wouldn't have got. I looked at it the way that if you seek happiness, I didn't seek going to Egypt as the end all. It wasn't about just making it to Egypt, because if I just focused on getting to like chasing happiness, it's just like, man, if I make it to Egypt, I'm gonna be so happy. I'm gonna be fulfilled. I never did. I would never do that to myself. That's like setting yourself up for failure. And it's a very dangerous game for your mind. So what I would do is I would week or the months, and I'd be like, okay, cool. In this week, I'm gonna meet these tribes. I'm gonna go to this guest house. I'm gonna meet these people. There's the news people. They want to do an interview with me, and like, I don't know, like Mozambique or something like that. Or to those things, and Egypt is never in my head. It's never there. It's not experienced the journey, and the better you can flow with that. What do we call it? We call it flow. The better you can flow,
Yeah.
you're never really seeking for happiness.
I love flow, by the way. I would love to think that my life is full of flow. But I would say that majority, maybe 90%, I just go with it, and I try to stay in that state. And for me these days, when I'm doing my hikes, whether it's 1 hour, 2 hours, or whatnot, I have a 20,000 step to actually try and complete, which will take me about 3.5 hours or so, because I
Wow.
work pretty low. Yes, but I intend to do that. I intend to challenge myself. I love that. I wish many people understood or knew the concept of flow as well, and to reflect on their lives as to what gives them a higher sense of purpose, and how to declutter some of the things that we've allowed to clutter our lives, that is, pulling us down. So
Well,
from all this conversation,
the
I'm listening.
oh well, there's bad news to flow as well, and
I only want the good ones.
the audience listening, or even just in the world, the world, I would say a very, very small percentage of people would reach that flow based on the climate that we're in, the societies that we're in. We've built societies flow. Western societies, the first and second industrial, brick and mortar, like kind of life, like, and in the world, people find it very hard to flow because they have been taught rules, regulations, being, and they're in a rat race. You go to, and they've been told a lie that the harder you work, if you slave, you're eventually that pension. You can retire at the age of 75. It's this dream. And
I went the opposite direction.
and because of this dream,
Yeah.
this false dream, unfortunately, the biggest form of manipulation that you can receive is your mind, having your mind believe in something that is of value, but use it against you in a way. So these people are working really hard, a lot in the morning. They go to work, they come back, they're tired. You've worked from 9 to 5. Why would you want to flow? You just want, you want to get like you want to sit down, you want to lay down, you want to relax. You've either dealt with people, you've dealt with typing, you've dealt with whatever issues that have been during that day. So it's going to be very hard for you to question society, to be curious, to want to go meet your needs, because you're tired and you have to follow these customs, these rules. That this is the only way that you're going to make money. It's the safest way. The safest way is to keep your head down to the boss.
That is a language I understand very, very much. And how do we call it? Before the pandemic hit, I resigned from my full-time position. With everything, yeah, I resigned because at the end of the day, what I had found was that a lot of nurses or healthcare professionals were just dropping dead, were passing on. All the messages I was getting were not the greatest. And I realized also that my blood pressure, for instance, was creeping up and I was gaining more weight. So it's like the universe or the creator. I was being given all these signs that you need to get out for your sanity and for your physical health as well. And everybody else that I worked with, for instance, was looking at when they retire. And I'm looking at the people who retired 2 months, 3 months, 1 year, 2 years. I've said bye-bye. It's like, no, I need to live. And what can I do to live?
Yes, absolutely. That's preach. Yeah. I mean, you are, one of the few people fortunate enough to, and I call it the spark. People who can think what you think, but they don't necessarily need a spark, like the engine of a car, to get it started. That spark is what ignites parts start moving, and then the car moves. And so that's what you did. You had a spark. I did, and that spark came from realizing that it's not right. Something's wrong. Something is really wrong. You start questioning things, and you need to get out of this. And that's exactly what I did. I left the industry toxic, and I saw what it was doing to people. I was in the fashion industry, but the way that it wasn't really making people more beautiful. It was literally doing the opposite of those things. But we worked the way that we wanted to on a magazine, and so a lot of people were suffering because of that. And that's what really ate inside me. And I started to see the world that I was in as very toxic. And so I needed that spark.
Nice. I think with me, I also realized that 2017, I was on my way to work, a night shift. I'd come from a night shift, really couldn't sleep, didn't sleep properly. And healthcare professionals tend to be like drunk drivers when we haven't had enough sleep. And I Well, let's just say when I came to, my car was total. So
Oh, really?
that was also, a huge awakening that, when you talk about things happening in your life to wake you up, and that was an awakening that if I had gone, I wouldn't have known. If it's similar to you walking and putting one, if you had gone, your last breath, you wouldn't even have known what your last breath would. Listen, I didn't
Absolutely.
see any stars, I didn't see nothing. I was just out.
Out, yeah.
Yes, I was out. And when I came to, I started crying. And my crying was because it's like life is so life is nothing. It's just like that, and then we'll be gone. So I saw myself as a speck, nothing really, like a speck of dust, nothing in this vast universe. I could have easily been gone, and it will be 5 years now that I would have been gone. So
Mm,
that also changed my whole life. So sometimes for some of us to become awake and aware, we go through some of these how do we call it? You nudge, you nudge, you nudge, you don't listen to the nudging, you don't listen to the whispers, and then you get a slap. So that was my slap
yeah, yeah, yeah,
to get out of it and then start planning my exit. So it
yeah.
happened in 2017, but my exit was in 2020. It took 3 years for that mental, you know, but I had a
Mm,
plan. Yes. I got out, got a low paying job, and then got another job that I decided that, like this now within the pandemic, I have decided that I'm taking the summer for myself, for my mental, spiritual, and, physical well being, which is so amazing.
yeah.
Man, it is. I,
It's
I'm
beautiful.
kind of wondering it is beautiful. It is beautiful.
It's very difficult to explain that to the rat race,
Mhm.
because when you're stuck in the rat race, if you and it's a very interesting thing that people call it rat race, because when they race, you put like some cheese in front of it, and that's how they run after. You
Yes, yes.
a motivation in order to run. The whole reason that they're running, I don't know why they're running. They're doing it for reasons that they don't even understand what's
You
happening in
don't
our
understand.
society as well. It's the same thing. We're in a rat race, and we're absolutely don't matter to us. Like absolutely don't. I, I have material, a car, and I have things, but if those things left, I wouldn't worry about it.
Mhm.
I would just be like, well, more often, you know, and it's
Which is
just
great for the health. Which is
but
great for the
help
health.
too. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, yes, yes.
Hmm.
So let's get back to this journey of inspiration and motivation and challenges, because I believe this journey, not that I believe we this journey was not an easy journey. You've talked a little bit, you've talked some about your thighs rubbing together, bleeding, your
Yeah.
soles. It's like, oh my goodness, for those of us who are we we are in trouble. But
Uh,
but Mozambique, you walked
yeah,
into a danger zone.
I did. This amazing video that I captured before I went. This man, his name was Francesco. Um, he accommodated me. He made sure that I was safe in this village. I had arrived there the news about me was already there. So
Mhm.
I was by hundreds of people from the village, and they were people coming up to me, wishing that I touch them so that they can have good luck. Proposal like
Wow.
on the spot. It was a lot. It was, and all of that said, can you please videotape me
Yeah.
coming out and meeting these? And so, I was escorted out by the chief of the village, introduced me to the people,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just almost like unreal experience.
Wow.
How many times do people get to say that or do that? Or
Yes.
it's unimaginable. And um, so when I spoke to Francesco, and he said, do not cross the border by foot border, which is a bridge that
Mm-hmm.
crosses over the Save River and
Yeah.
separates northern and southern Mozambique. North is where the Renamo faction, the
Mm-hmm.
rebel soldiers live, and despite his warnings, I to now walking that it's just like I had this machine mentality. It's the only way I know how to keep going is I have to literally be obsessed, just keep going. You know, like no matter what, I won't stop. Like even all of South Africa, I had to learn on the spot how to cross rivers. But I would never is that I would always find a solution. I would always find a way. And it's not because I have a higher intelligence. We all are. And the most incredible tool that a human being has is,
It's the brain.
and
Mm.
my brain is unlike any other. It's just the same. We absorb information and we can creatively make information.
Mm.
And so I started using my brain for each obstacle, except for when I crossed the
And
border,
imagination.
except for when I was Mozambique. That was the one time I did not use my brain, and I ended up getting shot by three soldiers in the bush who fired at. So just to backtrack a little bit, I was picked up by the military soldiers,
Mm.
government. They threw me in the back of a truck with six guys in the back, two guys in the front. They all have AK-47s, machine guns, and no one is speaking English. So I don't know what was going on. I could have been kidnapped. I had to play it cool. So we're moving over 100 miles per hour down this road in Mozambique where the soil is just red, rich brown red soil. And the sunset, and all of a sudden we heard gunshots from a distance, and they were firing at us. And the truck stops. They get out, and they start with them, and it became, and then more military people came, and it became okay. I'm in like this is now a
The
battle.
full blown war. Yeah.
I'm in, and only then did it like dawn on me like how. So of course I did the most. This is what I did again, and I said, you know what? I need to take my camera out and film
Mm-hmm.
this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's obviously not allowed. If the soldiers had seen me with that,
Yeah.
I would have been in trouble. See me with it. It's just that I was able to get away just in time.
Yeah.
And pretend that I didn't. But I was able to videotape. The whole the videotape the soldiers being shot in the bush. But but yeah, that was probably a moment that traumatized me for the remainder of
For
the
a
trip.
long time. Yeah. You know,
And this was This was just
Mhm.
a second, and I had 6 more countries to go.
6 more countries to cross. As you're telling the story, the proverb that keeps coming to mind, and it's an Akan proverb. But nowadays, we all claim a proverb not from a particular part of the continent, but we say an African proverb. The proverb goes as the the fly that does not listen follows the corpse into the grave.
Yes. Yeah,
So you were
yeah,
told not to go there, but you decided that is your route, and you're lucky you did not follow. So and basically
there was a
say that it's an
crack in
advice.
the there was a crack for the fly in the coffin, but it was only by luck,
Only by
you know,
yes, only
to
by
be a
luck.
crack.
Yes. So I am. Even coming from Ghana, communication is a problem amongst many of us, within the country, especially, indigenous languages. Like I'm an Akan, I don't understand
Mm.
Ewe, I don't speak Ewe, or Hausa, or, Fulani, any of those other languages that go back. And then you come to, for instance, Nigeria with the Yoruba, with, Igbo and all the other languages. But you traveling from Cape Town, from all these different languages, Zulu, all the way, Swahili, and God knows, Somalia, Somaliland, I don't know, Sudan with its different languages, to Cairo. How did you deal with this language issue? Because one country like Ghana has 50, Nigeria has over 200. From Cairo to, from how do you call it, Cape Town to Cairo, how many languages? I'm not asking you to count because I don't think you counted.
Yeah, yeah.
It will be uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was
How did you?
unknown how many languages. Thing because um, you know, um, essentially. So what I did really was a few. I tried a few different methods, and I call those like cheat sheet methods. One of them was I would always make a friend with someone who speaks English there.
Mm.
I figured that out because at least the minimum, can you speak English? If you can say that in whatever language, then game by far. Because then they would be like, okay, he speaks English, I can, and then they will find a teacher, usually a teacher of the village, or
Mhm.
the or the police officer. They will usually speak the language. Very broken English. Somebody in the village always has to speak English. And I started to understood that that was a trend. So
Yes.
you go
Yes.
into it calmly, before languages, and then eventually you become very calm about. I already knew exactly what to expect. I knew what a village would look like on a Google map, although it would not be on Google Map. It would be one, even though there isn't one on the map. Just because of how the valleys, I could tell if the roads are crossing, where the
Oh,
roads coming from. If it's cities, are they coming from smallest? Are there little roads that then connect to one single road? I know that if I intersect here, I will have an opportunity for food. I will have there, and I would have many other opportunities. Um,
that
and
is really
usually,
smart.
it's just figuring it out over time after making many mistakes. And that's how I
No,
learned a lot.
you say that it's bringing my mind to, when we used to go to the village and the village paths, how they are laid out and which path leads to the villages. I never really thought about it, how you saying it, but you saying it, it's like, oh, it's just making me think.
That is interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, those are some things, and I would always learn about that help me survive in that in those places.
Mhm.
Languages are not on Google Translate, so unfortunately. But what I would also do, and this is the second tier. The second tier is I would find somebody who speaks the language and they would translate for me, in person or by writing. Um, so that's the first tier. That's the easiest one. Is um, so East Africa has maybe, you know, we have 5 main languages kind of thing.
Mhm.
Really, um, what they
Swahili.
speak in Malawi, and then English, of course,
Mhm.
and they speak different languages. So the main languages are the 4 or 5 languages. Those are like the
Yeah.
bulk. If
Mhm.
you can speak, oh yeah, Tigray is Amharic.
Yes.
One of those languages really well. So for me, Swahili, I started speaking Swahili really well. I learned a lot of it between Malawi, and so that's what I call bulk language,
Mhm.
because most of the villages, they actually don't really speak. They wouldn't speak Swahili. They wouldn't speak their own language. So they would have
Yes.
like 200 languages over there is supporting Swahili as an example,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
they might not really be speaking English. Get that going. If you can understand Swahili, now you at least, instead of the now speaks English, there's definitely going to be someone in that village
Speaking
who speaks
Swahili.
Swahili.
It's amazing you mentioned Swahili when it comes to languages. Years ago, when the OAU, or now African Union, was instituted, Swahili was actually put on the table by then Kwame Nkrumah to be the language of Africa, instead of, English and French and
Uh,
everything, so we can
that's
um, communicate. Yes, I think it's back on the
I think
table
I
as of last 2 years.
I
Yeah.
think it should. I think in order for it is based on my own personal experience, but also based on when I was at the United Nations and the African Bank and they actually heard me speak
Mhm.
about my journey in Africa. Also, the people who are like trying to unite Africa, and they understand
Yes.
the difficulty. One of the reasons why Africa is in the state that it is in is because people to communicate, to travel from one African country to another African country in their own country. It's very difficult for them
Mhm.
to move, and that's
Mhm.
because split Africa in a way that's not um, uh, beneficial for communities who are nomadic, for instance.
Mhm.
So if Africa can unify, understand, and unified language, and have passports in order to travel, because right now my passport, which is not African, a European passport, Canadian passport, and you can travel within Africa better than an African
An African
person.
person. Yeah.
If that the
It's
reason
unfortunate,
for that,
but
I mean,
but
that is
that's a divide
that
and
is the
yeah.
I was gonna say that is the ultimate definition of divide and conquer. It is so obvious, and we're just kind of letting it happen in a way.
Subconsciously we still holding on to it, but I do pray and hope that this journey of experience and, um documenting and sharing with the world, especially for me, for the most part, especially Africans who are Africans or blacks in the diaspora. And when I talk about diaspora myself, I've been away from the motherland for so long that I qualify under the diaspora, yourself as a diaspora as well. What we bring to the table is inspiration, is motivation, you know, it's retelling the African story, or telling it from our point of view. And from your point of view, it is so much in depth, and it is, I even lose words, and me, I don't lose words. How come?
Well,
Was it
yeah,
so?
yeah, that's true. I was gonna say exploration, and one of the reasons why I wanted to explore is because if you look at the history of those are individual people, and explorers come in all different shapes and sizes. For the most part, are like they can be sailors, scientists, they artists who are looking at art from around the world, kind of thing, and other indigenous art and whatnot. And so explorers, people that look for new opportunities for humanity, and those are the first people that left Africa. They had to leave Africa to look for new opportunities. So they went through Eurasia, but explorers have always shifted humanity
Yes.
in a size is unimaginable.
Yeah.
Like, I'll give you an example. The first, now we're all over the world. You know, look at Christopher Columbus. I'm not saying he did, but it was significant. He crossed the ocean, went to, and that has completely changed the way that things lived. They live fruitfully because of explorers, because people have gone to India. They had to have the one person to explore that place and be like, cool. And then those explorers became eventually for goods and services and whatnot. Goods and services, slavery, right? Goods and services. Now we have explorers for different, to be the first ones to climb Mount Everest, the first ones to sail across the Atlantic Ocean. It's very bravado, very macho bravado. So like there's an end with no and now I think we are, and then we started to new era. The explorers who go into outer space, the explorers that new life forms, explorers who are astronomers. And then there's me, in the sense that we are looking for new opportunities to thrive in a sustainable way, in a way in which for another 1,000 years, for thousands of years, not just within my lifetime, not just within my children's lifetime, but to keep keep humanity thriving until no longer want to.
So what is in the works? I know there's something in the works. There has to be something in the works. With you, you are a restless spirit. You got to keep going until you cannot go any longer. So where are we going next?
When and it's very dangerous for me to rest, because go when they travel, they want to go on the beach, they want to relax, I'm like, why would, to me, even going like okay, I'll go to a nice hotel, but that doesn't appeal to me, because your hotels are usually separated reality of what that environment has to offer. You go to Bali to see Bali, not to see the Hyatt where else in the world. I would rather go to the Hyatt in Europe or Canada. But if I'm traveling, I want to live in other people's homes and really like try to learn their languages. And a lot of people, when you go to these, you don't get to have that opportunity. But sorry, that was like off track. What?
I'm thinking, oh my goodness, he's more like a social cultural anthropologist.
You know what? Anthropology is one of my favorite subjects. So that's the
Oh,
person
really?
I am.
I actually
Yeah, I
minored
love.
in anthropology,
There you go. I
but
can
my
see that.
focus was on
On what?
health,
Oh, health.
medical
Okay.
anthropology. Yeah.
Um, I'm a very restless person, and I can't stay in hotels. I have to explore, and I need to push my person. Not everybody is just curious, um, which is curious aren't curious, because we're all born curious. Your born goes around touching things. You're making sounds. You're feeling everything. You're a scientist. You're a baby, but you're a scientist because you're measuring your
Oh,
environment,
yes.
constantly measuring your environment. You're like,
Mhm.
okay, I won't do that again. That this is hot. Don't touch that.
Yes.
So now you have a fear of heat, and I lost that for a little bit when I got caught up in, and it was probably, and I started to realize that I was losing that. I could see it in people. You can't have deep flow conversations in a sense. It had like a question in the back of their mind. This is different because obviously you did questions, but people
Yeah.
have like an incentive in their head that
You still haven't answered what is next, but it's so, how do you call it? When we met at Tony's, arts exhibition,
Mm.
and you started speaking, I said, no, 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 no. This conversation is not any usual kind of conversation. It's going to be a detailed conversation. That's why it's like, okay, I need to have time in capital letters, bolded for you. Let me get rid of everything and
you know
focus, because you did
yeah.
say it. Um, the way your mind works and the way your spirit also works and your experience has, gives you this richness that many could read books, could study, get their PhDs and yada yada, but are unable to attain. And this is not me fluffing and puffing you. It's my assessment. It's my assessment. And that is why I said no, we need to have this conversation. And when you said yes to the interview, I spoke to one of my friends, Baha. It's like, he said yes,
uh,
I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to interview him. So yes.
of course.
So what is next?
Okay, all right. You want me to go directly into this? Okay. So I've been because there are some things I can say and things I cannot say because something
Yeah.
secrecy and
Okay. That
contractual
is something
agreements and all
coming
that.
next.
But I will tell you. So right now, the most upcoming thing is another expedition, and then I had to change it for another one because the timing didn't work out properly. It was to kayak the entire length of the Caribbean,
Whoa.
and we have pushed that for a future expedition. But that's going to be my dream. I love doing things that people they go whoa, because that inspires people, I think, and it really inspires me that I'm like, whoa, I just finished that. That's
You
insane.
talking about kayaking? Yesterday, I was close to the Grand River rafting space here
Oh,
in
nice.
Brantford, and there are all these kayaks there. It's like, I wonder how it will feel to be, but I can't swim. I was with
Oh,
a friend. Yeah, we went walking in the it's a vast conservation space that you can, have some
yeah.
downtime. And I'm looking at all these people, kayaking, and it's like, how does it feel like? It's so funny you just
Feels
mentioned that.
beautiful. It's
Okay,
so beautiful. I mean,
I'll try that too.
the first time the first time I ever been to actually was in Malawi, and I've never kayaked really before that. I had to kayak the entire length of Malawi from south to north because it was going in the direction, and it's the fourth largest lake in Africa. It's the second largest, deepest lake in the world. More species uh, of, of of fish than any other lake in the world. And I thought this is such an epic lake. This thing has history. It has so much beauty behind it.
Mhm.
Learn how to kayak. So I wouldn't recommend that for people. I recommend that if you're gonna do something for the first time, it'd be like crossing a continent. Like the other projects that I have coming up is so I'm driving an electric car across Canada from Newfoundland to BC just to promote sustainable transportation, sustainable travel, and sustainable.
Nice.
Reason for that is because we live in a continent, North America, in which we have so much opportunity to try sustainable energy,
Hmm.
but we decide not to because we're stuck. We're constantly stuck in the rat race. We keep our blinders are like this, and
Tunnel
we can't
vision.
see
Yeah.
the bigger tunnel vision, right? We're
Yes.
constantly doing that, and so I like to do things. Put it on the news, and then people they'll email me, and they'll be like, "Hey, man, you know what? I'm just gonna like invest in only sustainable, you and that's the drive, and it's just I'm just part of many people who are. This is my creative way of pushing forward the advent of sustainable, living.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And then I have a by the end of the year. It's not coming up at the end of it, but I'm gonna be shooting it. And this is an incredible TV show that um, I think will touch a lot of. And, just to give you the gist of it, it's really focusing on the outdoor world, and so I'm gonna be traveling around the world, States, and hooking up with people called uh,
Mhm.
women, uh, indigenous people, to basically go on and they're gonna teach me their ways. So
Oh,
it's
beautiful.
essentially decolonizing the outdoors.
Decolonization, the outdoors. Okay, nice, nice, nice. You can start with Brantford, just across from Toronto.
Probably, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Well, I
We
think
have the Six Nations of
we
the Grand River right here.
right.
Yes. So before we round up this conversation, I don't want to call it an interview. I like conversation because it's a
I like
beautiful
conversation
conversation
too. Yeah.
we
I
have.
you know
And
what to tell you, you are the first interview I think or conversation I've had because I've decided last year I had so many. Every other day I had over 100 times last year.
wow.
The 365 days, 100 times. That means every third day I was basically doing an interview, whether it's a written podcast, live, whatever. I was just basically spilling my heart to to people, and it was all over the internet. I decided, like you, take a year off, and so for me, this is kind of my year off. Inspired me, so I feel like I'm getting a lot out of this as well. That nourishes my heart.
Beautiful, because like I said, this is not just an interview. For me personally, it's an inspiration for me as a Black woman in here in the space to see another Black person break the narrative of we don't do this, and for also having the mindset that being a Black woman does not mean that I have to be, the angry Black man, view of society, or being a Black woman, I have to live in a Jane and Finch area, or I have to box myself, or I can't explore, I can't, go places, I can do things that
Mhm.
need to be done because, and the
Yeah.
reason why I said you're a restless spirit, because it takes one to know the other.
It does. The first time I saw you, I told you this before, but into this gallery, and I think as soon as I walked in, you said something, and I was like, she knows her mind is open. Really, because you can spot people open their mouth. It's not even when they open. It doesn't necessarily mean something profound or smart. It's even the question you ask. Questions that I know it's like you know, you're thinking you're stuck over there. But if you're asking a bigger question, your mind is there. And so
Yes.
you don't even need to say anything. You can just ask, like, not saying that this is the way that I make a judgment, but the way to spot someone who is, I would say, enlightened.
And I would just make you laugh when you go back and you listen to this conversation. You can laugh about it. When you said you went to Merowe, it's like what?
Uh,
And Merowe is not a place on the that many people think about or even know about. It's sort of hidden in history. And when you said that, I said in my head, it's like, oh, did he know that he looked like a black pharaoh just walking and standing there when I was talking? I
uh,
said, I you now.
probably my shirt was too tight that day
I
because
don't
I'm gaining
know,
some COVID weight.
but those things just stringed up in my head. It's like, okay, Nana, shut up, keep quiet. Your mouth will, put things, you know, because sometimes I say things based on all these that come to me. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, one day I'll tell him, and this is the day I tell you. It's like, you went there? Well, you do look like a black pharaoh. I don't know how they look like, but you do look like.
I think that is the greatest compliment that.
So before we come last, as they say, last.
Last.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like when they like to say things twice to make it
Hmm.
serious. And we're like, what do they say? It's
Oh,
like
we like
pull
to
it.
say it 3 times.
Yeah.
Last, what is your I was trying to put it properly, in your experience dealing with humanity from here to the continent, which vastly on the continent during this journey, what advice, you know, can you give us, the viewers, um, when it comes to understanding humanity or relating to each other on a, as human beings?
Mhm. It's a very big question,
Uh-oh.
but it requires a very simple answer.
Thank you.
Exactly. I think one should continue to be curious and question things that don't resonate with them, but also question the things that do resonate with you. Questions to become an agonizer, liberator. It's, liberating yourself, freeing your shackles of ignorance.
Wow. Guys, there is nothing I can say to top it up. You heard from Mario. He's inspired us. He's motivated us. He has spoken about his journey. We didn't talk about the dogs biting you, but
That's the only
life
thing.
has life has been challenging, but he has transcended those challenges. In a sense, what I got from all this is that changing your mindset, going through it, effective planning, goal setting, and all the other aspects can get you where you need to be in your future. So, what I got from this conversation also is that we need to determine what kind of future we're looking at or we want, how valuable we want our lives to be in relation to society, whether we have a purpose or not. I know what my purpose is, and I'm starting on it right now towards the future. And this is also part of the grand scheme of my purpose and the reason or the intentions behind these interviews or conversations are to share with people around the world, especially Black people. And if you are in Toronto or in Canada, that it is possible. There are Black people changing the narrative, rewriting our stories, and it is never impossible. It is always possible. When you take the I am from there, you leave the rest. The possible is longer than the impossible. So focus on the possibilities and keep going. Mario, thank you so much. Asante Sana. You see, I only know one words in languages. Asante Sana. And then Danke.
Dankeschön.
Dankeschön, Dankeschön, Dankeschön. Yes, thank you so much for saying yes to this interview. I know we were supposed to have this conversation for an hour. We had some technical challenges, so we started a bit later, but we transcended the technical challenges. They were challenges. That is why we overcame them. It's like, the mountains, going over the mountains. Yes,
Exactly.
yes, yes.
Exactly.
And I do remember a quote from you that when you see a mountain in front of you, no matter what it is, you find a way to cross it. And that's not my quote, that's you.
I believe. I mean, yeah, but sometimes I surprise myself with the quotes.
Yes, that's
Sometimes when I speak, it's not. I'm not thinking about the words that just comes. So I don't know what I'm gonna say in the next meeting or.
because when you bless with experience and wisdom, all of them come together, and that is the gift of you, Mario, to us, Black people and the world at large. Thank you so much, guys. This has been the Nanaya Yabua Show with this handsome Pharaoh. with Mario Rigby. You all have a beautiful day. Thank you and see you later.